the ancient world, there was a very simple formula for building an empire. Step 1. Invade. Step 2. Burn their temples to the ground. Step 3. Enslave the survivors. It was brutal, but it worked. It worked for the Assyrians. It worked for the Romans. It was the only way anyone knew how to hold on to power. But 2,500 years ago, one empire threw that entire playbook in the trash. They built the largest superpower human history had ever seen. At their peak, they controlled nearly half the population of the entire planet. But they didn't do it just by burning cities. They did it by building the world's first superhighway, an ancient intelligence agency, and a weapon so radical no one else even thought to try it: tolerance. You are watching Be Explained, and this is how the Persian Empire actually ruled the world. Zoom out for a second. The sheer scale of what we are talking about is hard to comprehend. Look at the borders of this empire. It stretched from the snowy mountains of Eastern Europe down through the scorching deserts of Egypt, all the way across the jagged peaks of the Hindu Kush to the borders of India. We are talking about over 2 million square miles of territory, over 44% of the Earth's population, all reporting to one single man, the King of Kings. How do you even govern that? There are no phones, no internet. If a rebellion starts in Egypt, the king in Persia wouldn't even know about it for 6 months. By the time he marched his army there, the empire would be gone. You have to build a machine, and the Persians built the ultimate administrative machine. First, they realized that one man cannot manage everything. So, they chopped the massive empire into 20 distinct provinces. Each province was run by a local governor called a satrap. These satraps collected taxes, commanded local armies, and kept the peace. But there is a massive flaw in that system. If you give a guy his own province, his own money, and his own army, he is eventually going to try and become the king himself. So, the Persian kings created a shadow network. It was the ancient world's first true intelligence agency. They were literally called the eyes and ears of the king. These were secret police and imperial inspectors who answered to no one but the emperor. They would show up unannounced in a province, audit the treasury, review the troops, and listen for whispers of treason. If a satrap was skimming money or plotting a revolt, the eyes and ears would find out, and the governor would be quietly eliminated. But spies are completely useless if their intelligence takes half a year to reach the capital. So, the Persians carved a superhighway straight across the harsh terrain of the Middle East. It was 1,700 miles long. They called it the Royal Road. And on this road, they essentially invented the Pony Express. They built 111 secure relay stations, spaced exactly 1 day's ride apart. At every station, fresh, rested horses were always waiting. An imperial rider carrying top-secret intelligence would come galloping in, covered in dust and sweat, jump off his exhausted horse, leap onto a fresh one, and immediately keep riding. They rode through freezing nights, torrential rain, and boiling desert heat. A message that normally took 3 months to travel on foot could cross the entire empire in just 7 days. That was mind-blowing, impossible speed for the ancient world. But speed and spies only get you so far. If you conquer people, crush their culture, and force them to worship your gods, they will always hate you. And eventually, they will rise up. Enter Cyrus the Great. Cyrus figured out a psychological cheat code that the Romans and Assyrians never grasped. He realized that the absolute cheapest way to prevent a rebellion is just leaving people alone. Look at his conquest of Babylon. Babylon was the crown jewel of the ancient world. It was surrounded by massive, seemingly impenetrable walls. Instead of throwing away tens of thousands of lives in a brutal 10-year siege, Cyrus used brilliant engineering. The mighty Euphrates River flowed directly under the massive city walls. In the dead of night, Cyrus's engineers dug massive trenches and diverted the river. The water level dropped, and the Persian army simply walked under the walls through the muddy riverbed. But what he did next is the truly shocking part. When Cyrus took the throne of Babylon, he didn't order a massacre. He didn't smash the idols of their chief god Marduk. Instead, he went to the temple and bowed to their gods. He essentially told the terrified citizens, "Keep your religion, keep your culture, just pay your taxes." He even found the Jewish people who had been enslaved by the Babylonians for decades, and he freed them. But he didn't just let them go. He opened the Persian treasury and actually funded their journey home to Jerusalem so they could rebuild their temple. This wasn't just Cyrus being a nice guy. This was a brilliant, cold, calculated strategy. By offering religious freedom and cultural tolerance, he completely removed the desire to rebel. He made people actually want to be part of the empire. And once you have peace, you can make money. To completely unify this massive territory, the Persians introduced a standardized currency, a heavy gold coin called the darik. Before this, global trade was a nightmare of bartering cattle or weighing random chunks of silver on scales. Now, a merchant in Greece could easily and confidently trade with a farmer in India. The darik became the US dollar of the ancient world, sparking an unprecedented economic boom. And where did all that money go? It went into the desert. They built their crown jewel city, Persepolis. Persepolis was the ultimate flex of imperial wealth. It featured massive, towering columns topped with two-headed griffins, carved from stone hauled from across the continent. But here is the most incredible part. When modern archaeologists dug through the ruins of Persepolis, they found tens of thousands of baked clay tablets. They weren't religious texts, they were receipts. These tablets proved that the men and women who built the massive palaces and grand staircases of Persepolis were not slaves. They were highly skilled, paid labourers recruited from every corner of the empire, receiving silver, grain and wine for their work. For over 200 years, the Persians ran the known world. They proved that while a brutal army can win a battle, only logistics, infrastructure, and an unbelievable level of tolerance can successfully rule an empire. Look at the map, one last time. Eventually, this massive, well-oiled machine did break. A young king from Macedonia named Alexander the Great swept through, conquered the territory, and watched the magnificent city of Persepolis burn. But when Alexander took over, he didn't destroy the Persian system. He kept it. He kept the local governors. He kept the royal road. He kept the postal service. Because even the greatest conqueror in human history looked at this massive, incredibly efficient machine and realized a simple truth. You cannot build something better than this. The ancient Persian Empire eventually fell, but they wrote the blueprint for how to run the world.